Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Austin J. Haines Show. And I'm going to come right out of the gates. Have you been thinking, somebody's thinking it's too late? I had a conversation today, and it was like, what wakes you up at 2 a.m.? Are you in the midlife section of your life, the season, or perhaps you're approaching that and you're starting to think, is this all there is? Can I reset? Is it even possible? Maybe you made a mistake early on and you're thinking it's too late. I want to talk about this tonight. I want to talk about you and the potential for your life reset. First, I want to welcome Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller, my co-host from the Red Carpet Connection. And Dr. Andrea, I think we should make this a thing, like car conversations with Dr. Andrea. What do you think?
I know. It always ends up being I'm wherever I'm at, I'm in transition. And I know last summer I was in the pool every time I talked to you. I
So
got out of the pool
cool.
today. I got out of the pool.
You know what? It's a great testament to that, like everything's teachable. And if you want to do something, you do it.
I love
Right? Because there'd be 1,000 things to not do something. You can come up with an excuse. Well, I got to go here. But we are connected. It's that double-edged sword, but that connectedness gives us the ability to be able to reach you and touch you wherever you are. So before we get into the show, I just want to welcome in we have our podcast audience that's going to get this on the playback. We have Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV. We have Roku, all because of our partner E16 TV. So I want to give them a quick shout out to help us broadcast. And Dr. Andrea, how are you feeling? What's going on with the summer? Are you thinking about this reset for you?
Oh, it's funny. I'm looking forward to talking to this more. I feel like I'm constantly in a perpetual reset, and it's funny because when I look back in my life when I was a teenager, I remember thinking, oh, when I'm this age, I'll be able to I used to call it getting it. In fact, I've been working on a book for, I don't know, probably 40 years called Getting It. So, I think I've got it. I think, oh, I finally got it. And then something will happen and I'll be like, oh, now I get it. And I'm getting things quicker and faster. And that's what makes me want to learn more. And I don't know if I'll ever get it. I mean, chances are I'll be on my deathbed and then I'll die and be like, oh, now I get it. And then I'm going to be mad because I didn't get to finish the last chapter.
It's an interesting thing. There's some philosophy that says you never got it. You're always getting it.
Yeah.
And this might be a great talk track because, and I think just based on the study that I've gone through in my own life, I mean, I was, and maybe we can talk about the last time you pushed reset in your life. Maybe you're not midlife, but think about the last time you pushed reset. Maybe for some of you, it was a decade ago. For me, it was about 4 years, actually 4 years ago, almost to the day when I left my corporate job of 19 years, the same company, and pushed the reset button. And, people thought I was crazy. Matter of fact, most of the people in my life at that time are gone. I don't even get a phone call, nothing, because I decided to make an adjustment and change. And it's okay. We love and appreciate our journey. But what I was going to say is when we push that reset button, we think we're going to reach this magic utopia. I talk about this in Power of Pure Presence. We think we're going to get there, but the fact is we're never going to get there because we're always here. And here is where we can augment and step into that reset right now. But that reset often looks chaotic. See, this is the paradox of it all. We think we're going to get there and it's smooth and silky. But the truth is our reset is right here in the chaos where the decision is made that says, I am going to, no matter what. And that point where we say, no mas, no more. No more. I'm not settling for that no more. So when was the last time you said no more? I'm not doing that anymore. I am going to make an adjustment. Do you remember, Dr. Andrea, that time where you said no mas? You said, maybe you didn't say no mas.
Yes. However, I sang it. I said, never enough for me from Greatest Showman. And I just realized that it wasn't going to be enough for me. So I needed to step out.
Yes. It's an interesting concept. And we've been talking about the midlife reset here and really, and it's interesting. Everybody I've shared Midlife Oasis with, which is really, it's my story, and it's going to evolve into everyone's story, because I want to know what your midlife oasis is. What is midlife oasis? It's when you reset. I'm going to share a quote. This is a great quote. I was going to have a graphic up, but I'll get the graphic to you. And this really spoke to me. And it came from an unlikely source, by the way. Let me put it up there. I'll type it in at some point so you can see it. Aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person you always should have been. Mm. And before we talk about the quote, how many of you lived a life that you thought was the life you were supposed to live? You got the education, you got the job, you got married, you had the family, you had the children, and then you wake up one day. It's like what's the Talking Heads, David Byrne? When the days go by and the water same as it ever was. He goes, how did I get here? Right? Yeah. How did I get here? Right. And so sometimes you might ask yourself, how did I get here? And you realize, and this is probably true for a lot of people, is that you don't know how you got there because it wasn't in alignment with who you really are. It's like, and Henry David Thoreau says, most men, I'm going to add women, most men and women lead lives of quiet desperation. Mm. And I maybe this is going to hit home, but I want it to hit home. So who do you think that quote was shared by? Who do you think said that quote? I'm going to type this in.
For me, I don't know who said it, so I hope somebody else knows. I just know a friend of mine that I used to work with, that was a old business partner of mine, used to say it all the time. And so, that's funny that I don't know that. I only can think of him as being the only person I knew that repeated that.
Well, I'm going to type it in so I can just share it and let people visually see it. We keep a little anticipation building here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little teaser here too, because I want to, even though we don't have the Midlife Oasis book, that'll be a future project, but we do have a book that will help you today.
Book, brother, and you know what? You got my favorite book of all time right here. Yeah, man. I'm going to tell people to read this one.
So that was a great moment in Flashpoint, Manifesting the Moment of Your Big Breakthrough. It's a book that is my first solo book, and I won't tell the whole story here, but Damon John, serendipitous, kind of an on-purpose meeting there to meet him and have that happen. So it was pretty amazing. But Dr. Andrea, back to you. So what about when you started your business? Was there like a reset involved there?
So I have multiple businesses. So each time there was a reset. So, it started. Oh, by the way, we should bring Alicia on, because she could only be with us the first half hour. So, okay. So we should bring her on sooner than later.
Let's do that.
Yeah, each time in my business, there was a huge shift. And every time I've went into a different learning module to learn, now I'm working on another PhD equivalent. It's not a PhD, but it should be, because I have to read 100 books and write a paper on 100 books within 2 years, all about neuroscience and NLP and hypnosis and, neurological connection. So, to understand all of that at the depth of reading 100 books and understanding it, to be able to synthesize the information and write about it, in a annotation kind of a way, definitely is equal to a dissertation.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Well, anyway, we're gonna have to get updates on how you're gonna pull it off. But let me pull the quote up, and then we can bring on Alicia. So here's the quote, and I'll read it again so everybody can see it.
Oh, that's
you want to read it, Dr. Andrea?
Yes. Wait, is that it starting right there?
Yep.
Aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person you always should have been. And that's David Bowie.
David Bowie. I've listened to some of his sound bites, and they're really incredible. He's just connected, right? That artistic soul, that deeper connection. And that's what I want for the listeners. And I want that for the listeners. And I'm really wanting that for the poetry book, to really touch that deep part. So what we'll do is I'll share this quick little animation, then we'll bring on Alicia and learn her story. And I want to know about the equestrian coaching. I didn't even get to talk about that in the green room, but I'm excited about this. So let me do this, and then Dr. Andrea, you'll be doing the honors to introduce her. So hold on, here we go. All right. So, Dr. Andrea, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. So Alicia Boos is an empowerment coach. She's a host of 3 different YouTube channels. She has groups called the Phoenix Rising Women's Group, Global Resources for Men, and Global Equine and Equestrian Coaching. And she also has a life coaching group called the Playful Pivot membership group. She's a medical massage therapist. She has been for 22 years, although she looks like she's barely over 22. Gorgeous woman. And she runs her own business called The Fifth Element. And she also is a former Waldorf teacher. She taught 6th grade and maybe others as well. She has multiple degrees in education and a postgraduate degree in equine assisted learning. And she really is, to her, it's really important to her to have, from her life experiences, to create a safe space that's non-judgmental for other people to be vulnerable and be authentic as they stretch and grow. So through all of her communities, she invites other coaches and people to be along there to help them really be who they want to be and show up the way they want to. And I had the pleasure of being interviewed for her one of her YouTube channels. And then tomorrow I get to talk to her membership group, and I'm specifically going to be talking about intimacy and different things with related to that. And she's just a wonderful light. So I'm so excited that we were able to have her on here and share her with all of you.
Let's bring Alicia on. Alicia, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. And Dr. Andrea, thank you so much for your sweet introduction. It was lovely to have you on the show this morning, and so fun to spontaneously get to be here this evening.
Yeah.
We're eager to hear more about your story. You have a very diverse background. I love the fact that you're focused on women, and eager to hear how you landed here as a former Waldorf teacher and running 3 shows and especially the equestrian. So hopefully we have time to that, but be eager to find out what happened in your past, like your reset, your pivot, if you will, your playful pivot, as you call it, and how this got you to this very point in time at this hour on this July 10th to be chatting with us. So what happened?
Oh my goodness gracious, so many things. It's part of the reason that my membership is called the Playful Pivot, because I have pivoted so many times throughout my life. And I am very joyful. And as an adult, I'm really lucky because I've never lost that sense of wonder that so many people do, as life has a tendency to sometimes jade us. And I find relief in being able to connect with people and that space of wonder. As adults, oftentimes we don't really feel like we get to play. Having a permissionary, somebody to share their story and to create that space that allows people to step into, can give us that opportunity to engage in that space of wonder within us, which in its own right really does help us with resetting. Because as children, we don't have as many considerations as to what a reset is. Kids reset the game all the time, right?
Yes.
And so for us as adults, it's important to remember that it's about the journey. It's not about the destination, because in our minds, we create this projection of what we think the destination is going to be. But as we continue to engage, things go a little bit wrong sometimes, right? Like wrong, quote unquote.
Yes.
We meet new people. We have new opportunities. Maybe you have an injury or a sickness, or your job falls apart. And you're like, what do I do? Right? And all of a sudden, that destination that you've been spending all this time and energy and potentially money going towards can be potentially radically different than what you started with. And creating that space of acceptance within and grace is so important. And it looks like there might be some lag going on that will hopefully resolve itself and we can just laugh at my animated facial expression and hands in the meanwhile. But
We hear you.
as long as you can hear me, right? We'll just keep going.
Yes.
So one of my friends, a coach that I talked to once for one of the global men's summits that I created, he talked about how important it is to just do 1% better every day. And when you're thinking about a reset, when you think about it being 1% better every day that you're transitioning, it makes it less overwhelming. And I talk to my coaching clients about creating micro goals, because then you can see the small incremental changes and you can win every day, no matter what's going on.
So I'm
right?
going to interrupt you for intentionally here, because I want to capture something you said. So we're talking about the 1% increment improvement. But what I wanted to go back to is that you said you didn't lose your sense of wonderment. And I think this is really important to hit on, because I think that logically we've heard this before. We know that as we get older, we can become fixed in our thinking. We understand the concept of wonderment and imagination. But what would you say, because you've had this beautiful gift to keep that going, what would you say to somebody who doesn't have that, and who is like, they understand the concept in their head, but it doesn't really manifest in their lives. It's too late for me. It's same old. I've been in this job. I've been in this relationship. I can't change it now. So I'm just curious, like, what would you say to somebody to keep their sense of wonderment?
I would tell them to give themselves grace and patience and kindness.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Grace. Right.
Because
Thank you.
you're so welcome. Because I think that oftentimes in society, if we can give other people grace, that's a beautiful thing. But sometimes people forget to give themselves grace. They get too busy. They get overwhelmed with work or family or the expectations that we allow society to put on us that we take on. But to give ourselves grace and say we don't have to be perfect. We just have to breathe and allow ourselves the space to take a step back, because everywhere around us is wonder. So something even as simple as a plastic bag that we have gotten from a grocery store, and the fact that at some point in history, some person created the ability to create that plastic, and they took the time to market it.
Yeah. You're really hitting something, but I want to say hello to Gallivanting Like a Royal here is on, and she says travel more. Of course, Duchess DJ Love, our travel sponsor, Power Up Your Presence. And, I had this incredible thought today, and I think it ties in. Imagine if, because one of the things about resetting is that grace, where you and it's interesting, Alicia, I just noticed, I noticed things. The moment we went there, your whole, your mood just completely, you just settled. You're like, this is my vibe. I totally felt that. And I was like, this came across in the way you communicated it. And one of the things that came to me today was with this, more intentional living. Imagine if every article in your life, every item, you had a vision for it. So a grocery bag. So instead of I ripped it home from the store, is it going to go in the trash? Imagine if you're like, okay, what can this be used for? And then maybe I can reuse the bag, for example, or I can do something else with it. And I just kind of felt naturally led to share that, what you're talking about, this wonderment and this idea of having grace with yourself and maybe the items in your life and looking at them differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Grace is an interesting thing, and wonder, and coming back to a space of love and compassion for yourself, right? Because in order to reset, you have to let go of the expectations that you created for yourself to create the space to step into something new. And that can be really difficult, especially when you've invested a lot of time, energy, effort, money, all of those things. So you asked me about part of my story. So part of my story is going to college off and on for 10 years, 10 different colleges, 10 different degrees, several states. And I had a series of different life situations come up that sidelined me. And that could be, I've had a couple of the situations were back surgeries. Another was a head injury. Another was standing up against the administration at one of the colleges I went to because they weren't being just. And so that actually happened at 2 of the colleges I went to. So I was kicked out of 2 colleges because I stood up for what was right instead of what was comfortable for me. And so while I have my master's degree in education, I don't actually have a public education certification because I went halfway through my practicum. And because I stood up for what was right, they didn't allow me to go through and actually get the end of my certification, even though they took all my money and allowed me to get a degree. And so going forward and continuing on and doing those things. And after I taught several, I jumped around and I'd go to a school. And again, I kept struggling with different injustices. And as a new teacher, you oftentimes don't have the power to make the change. And I wasn't willing to stay in a place where hypocrisy reigned so highly. And I stood up for the things that were important to me. But what happened there is that I had to reset every time. And sometimes that was literally moving to another state. Sometimes that was me having to give up one of my animals to a good home because that was what was right for my animal, because I had to pivot and I had to do not what was comfortable for myself, but what was correct for the sentient being whose care I was responsible for. And so doing what is right the reset is about giving yourself grace and looking at what your values are. And as you grow, allowing that alignment to help you make choices that might not necessarily be comfortable to make. And to find those people as we shift and grow that can support us. And sometimes when we shift to new spaces, you are like an island. Like when I came to Virginia, to Charlottesville, I knew no one. I moved here without a job, without a place to live, without knowing a single person after being on the road for 4.5 months, driving across the country back and forth 3 times. And I only had $100 left after I paid for rent in a place that I found.
Sounds like a great story.
And I slept on the floor for the first 3 nights that I was here, and I had no idea how things were going to turn out. And I built a successful practice, and I've made more money here than I have in any year prior doing massage.
So you're hitting a lot of really, really. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Andrea here because I know she's got some things that she wants to probably share and reflect on, because there's a lot of great stuff you're sharing. And we thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I just want to, before we do, I just want to thank our listeners here. If you're on the podcast, I want to invite you over to the YouTube channel. It's if you subscribe at Austin J. Haines, this will be up on the YouTube channel. You can see the visuals. We can see the scroll at the bottom of the screen. You can see Alicia, and we have Playful Pivot. Her website here is at the bottom of the screen, playfulpivot.com. Dr. Andrea, what are you thinking, feeling about what you're hearing so far? Oops, you're radiant, but you're on mute.
Thank you.
There we go.
So what I didn't know is I didn't know her backstory. So in hearing your story, now I realize why we get along so well, because she's multiply academic intelligence as well as multiple life challenges that have led to different experiences. So no wonder we seem to overlap in some really cool areas and then build and support each other and others. And so now I'm even more excited to get to know you even better because there's so many things that we probably didn't even come close to coming close to. So very exciting. And the fact that, I am wondering if you still are doing anything in the equine area. My daughter has horses, and so I know how they have changed her whole life and our life just by who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. And I'm excited to have our relationship build as well and see how we can collaborate. In regards to the horses were the last piece of my academic journey as I got my postgraduate degree in equine assisted learning, which actually took me 3 tries to get over a year just because of the head injury and different life situations. But I never gave up and got to finish that.
Good for you.
Thank you. I grew up with horses, and they've always brought a lot of peace to my soul, and they operate with nonverbal communication. So these days, right now in Virginia, I don't do as much with the horses. I do offer that as a service to people who have horses. So since I currently don't, I sadly had to sell both of my mares at the beginning of the pandemic so that I could stay home and help support my mom when she broke her ankle in 3 places and sprain the other one, so that because family is what's most important to me. I have an amazing mother who has a story that would be amazing for your show.
Yeah, maybe we could have mother and daughter back on at some time. That would be an interesting thing to do.
Yes, I just briefly give a plug for my mom in regards to the reset, if that's okay.
Sure.
So my mother is turning 71 next month, and she became a yoga instructor in her 50s. She got her personal training certificate at age 68.
Wow.
And she is currently doing her wellness coaching certification. Just now has started so that she can be a wellness coach for women 55 and over. And she's on my team for my membership that I'm building.
I would love to interview your mother. That's a great, we talk about life, the midlife, but when is midlife?
And
when's the midlife reset?
Yeah. Just being yourself and staying true to the passions, and that you can discover passions later on in life. And that's why I love talking about my mom, not just because she's my mother and she's my hero, but because her story is truly inspirational to me. And yeah, I'm just really excited for her in this next stage in her journey. And I'm very blessed I have the kind of relationship that I have with her, that we can support one another so beautifully.
Yeah.
In regards to the horses, really quick. Yeah. So the horses are amazing. They help with all different kinds of things in life. I love working with them from the standpoint of energetics and nonverbal communications, because in this day and age, with so many people behind their phones, people are struggling more and more with anxiety and depression. I believe in part because since we're in front of our phones so much, we're not able to read that nonverbal communication that predicts how a person is going to react to a situation, which makes people feel less safe. And Dr. Andrea, with your background in neuroscience, I would love to hear your thoughts on that matter as well. But with the horses, it helps you to come back to yourself and be able to read and predict and learn to trust your intuition more in energetics. And a very small sliver of what that is.
Wow, that's really great. So, yeah.
Yeah. My daughter was 11 when we first acquired a horse for her, and she's 32 and a half, or is she 33 now? I think 32. I think she might be 33. And she just lost Xena died last year, and that was the horse that she got when she was, and the horse was also 11, so they aged together. And to have that situation was just absolutely amazing, to see that journey between her and that horse, and how they could read each other, and how destiny is able to be seen and heard by them in such a magical way. Yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful to watch. Amazing.
Yeah, I just want to gallivanting like a royal. Just be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Just being yourself. And I want to add to that, the aspect of us being ourselves is that being unapologetically authentic is paramount. But the way we're able to be unapologetically authentic is by being mindful. Because when you're mindful, you don't typically have to be apologetic, because it's not just about you. It's important to be all of you, but with grace and kindness and compassion to the world that evolves as well.
That's beautiful.
Quite beautiful. Yeah, we were laughing because this morning I was extremely. I have more makeup on now, and I look more fixed up. even though I've been in the pool. And we were joking because I'm going to be on a thing with her tomorrow that probably tomorrow I might actually be all fussied up. But what one of the things I've noticed about other platforms such as TikTok, some of the people that I enjoy the most or that my family enjoys the most are these women and men who aren't fixing up or trying to be anything different. They're showing up just as themselves, and sometimes just being funny and silly and who they are by their weight, or their hair, like the hair will be totally disarray and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you this, and there's no apology for that.
Right.
And there are people, of course, who judge them, but most of the people are there to love them because they love hearing them, and they love that they're not afraid to hop on and still be in their pajamas at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or
Yeah, there's something. I mean, I think people crave authenticity. I've had people tell me, "Hey, I love the videos you did when you were out running, where you're all sweaty. Like, I like those videos more than the show." I'm like, okay. So, I'm thinking about transitioning this to me being outside and sweaty, and I'm just kidding.
I mean, hey, it takes all types, right? Like, if people want to follow me on Instagram, there are silly moments that I put on there. There is one that's a lot of fun where I'm literally like hanging upside down and I'm just like, and it's hilarious. You can't watch it and not laugh. It's literally impossible.
So, just a little plug. So after this show, Dr. Andre and I are going to go live on TikTok. First time we're going to do, I've been on live there, but we're going to do a tandem on TikTok after this.
That sounds fun.
Why not? We reach more people. And, yeah.
TikTok, don't stop. Ooh,
I'm not dancing.
Bring back 80s music here.
I will sing. I will do some singing. I'll sing some David Bowie. I'll sing something like that. But this has been great getting to know you and learning about you and what you're doing, and feel the authenticity and the passion, and would love to have you back on with your mom at some point. I think that would be a great synergy, and to hear your mom's story about, my goodness, at 68, she got her, what'd you say, her personal trainer?
Personal training certificate. Yeah. The
so that would be,
certification. It's pretty tough.
So that would be great. Let me just do a little something here so we can get folks to find out about you. Let me see if I can do this.
And people can find my mom at yogainfusedmovement.com. Her name is Vicki Muirhead.
Okay.
Cool. And then to remind people, Austin J. Haines, the Austin J. Haines Show, you can go to www.austinhaines.com to learn more and to follow him. And it's #Flashpoint, #Power of Pure Presence. And then he's got some new poetry that's out, and he's going to be.
Yeah, I got this. Actually, what is this one? Let's just see what this is. It's a little fun little video, but that book will be out this year, and we just want to reach more people, and especially midlife. There's one of the things that is going to happen is happening now, before we close out, is you have these people that are aging. We're all aging at different levels. It's just real, right? Yeah. And we've accrued this life experience. And you as a midlife person have incredible experience that AI can't replicate, no information can replicate, and the intimate connection that you can offer and create, and to share this experience along with the information is so valuable. And it can be lost in the world of the next sexy thing coming down the pike. So the call to midlife, and like I go back to this David Bowie quote, aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person that you always should have been. So it's in line with authenticity. It's in line with this raw authenticity. And so maybe you're in that section and you found this authenticity, but you don't know what to do with it. Maybe you don't have Alicia's story, right? Where you had this wonderment and you uncovered this business, or your mom's story. But if you found this, that was for a reason. So I'm just going to say, final thoughts. And let me do another teaser for next week. Let's do final thoughts, and then we have a very exciting guest for next week. Dr. Andrea, I'm going to start with you. Actually, let me start with Alicia first. So because maybe she'll say something that you want to reflect on. What would you say? Just final thoughts as we round out here.
My final thoughts would be that it's important to not be afraid of failure and the struggle and the mess that comes along with the reset and even just day-to-day life. Because while society sometimes feels like it gives us a hard time for failing and makes us seem like we're not good enough, failure is actually the foundation of success in whatever you want success to look like. And so instead of being afraid of it and how you might fall, instead just look at it as the opportunity that, like, yeah, if I fail, I tried, and I can use that information for the greatness that I will become undoubtedly at some point, and to have patience for the time it takes. Because for some people, it can look like it was easy and that it took a year to skyrocket. And other people, it takes 20 years. But neither is better than the other. They both have their own brilliance of which they shine in the steps they took and those they helped along the way.
It's beautiful. Yeah, very beautiful.
So my thought on this is, I'm thinking about all of us are sharing these journeys of twists and turns. And although we say change is a constant, it's change is the twists and turns that actually carve out the path, and the path moves. So we have a creek. You can tell I live in Ohio. We have a creek that runs through our property. We have 53 acres. And over the 24 years that we've lived there, I've seen it start to bend and groove and move differently. So the changes are very subtle. But if you look at it from 5-10 years, you can see that it's definitely taking a new path along our throughout our acreage, and that is the journey.
Yeah, it's so true. And the one thing that was coming to mind was I just heard the Kevin Hart story. Kevin Hart took him 19 years to get to make it big. 19 years, and most people don't know that. But I think, but just so I'm in integrity with. We have a show, Power of Pure Presence, every Sunday. It's about living life fully now. And it's this balance between discovering your authentic self, finding joy and gratitude in the space that you're in, and then expanding to your vision from there, not to get there and to think that everything's okay there. It's not, you're here. So, and that's the message, is to really honor the here and the now. And to echo what Alicia said earlier, to be willing to start small. And we all probably have a closet or a drawer. And this is a good setup.
I was just going to say, we should do something for the clutter. I was going to say that. Yeah. The drawer or that.
Look at you. I was talking, like when Alicia was talking about embracing the mess. It's like that closet. You finally open up the closet. You're like, or the room, and you're like, I'm finally going to get to this. And it's stuff everywhere. It's a mess. But in that mess, you're working through it. And ultimately that closet is going to be clean so you can repurpose it again. And maybe you're more intentional about what goes in it. Maybe you hold a vision for each object that goes in it, and you live from a different place. So
I have a good quote for that, because what other people are calling my mess is actually kind of makes me want to choke up, are little snippets of all my successes, and they're all shoved together right now. So it looks like a mess, but it's all of the things that led me to be where I'm at, that, in the haste of moving from an office, from an eminent domain situation, it's all shoved together, and it only looks like a mess, but it's not. It's amazing things if you can look at the story of what all that is in there, the path of the stuff.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
it.
a condensed collage of life.
Yes, very collaged.
Yeah, and I think all these conversations we're having it's about a different conversation of what success is.
Yeah.
The old model of success is not true anymore. It's a half truth. It's a portion. It's leaving people unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to stop allowing others to define what success is for us.
Exactly. And what the world portrays as success.
Yeah.
You know, the Tao Te Ching says the bright way looks dim. The bright way looks dim. You know, and I'm going up to see Henry David Thoreau's cabin next week in Massachusetts.
Cool.
And do you know that his book it was like 60 years after he died or after its release or something like that. You know, that's what it means to stay true, is that you're going to produce the truth inside of you midlife, no matter what, no matter if one person reads it or nobody reads it, you're going to produce it. It has to be done. It has to be done. And you can detach from the outcome of it. And then it becomes a seed. And you don't know where that seed or when that seed is going to sprout. It could be 60 years later. It could be 100 years later. But that's the beautiful process of it. So I want to thank you. Let's do this for next week. This was a perfect setup. So here we go.
Are you tired of clutter popping up no matter how many times you clear it and no matter what you do? My name is Starry Hansen. I'm a certified professional organizer and clutter whisperer, and that is my entire world, helping you figure out why the clutter won't go away and what you can do about it. I am so excited to come and chat with you all on Austin's podcast coming up soon, because we are going to unpack all things decluttering. Now, I have been a clutter whisperer for about 20 years now. I've appeared on over 30 TV shows, and this is my jam. I am here to help you understand and unpack why the clutter shows up over and over and over again. And really, for you to understand, it's not your fault. Now, common clutter wisdom says we just need better boxes or labels or bins, and yet the truth is we've never had more solutions in our entire history. And clutter's never been such a problem. Right? The organizing industry is growing every single year. So if clutter solutions were going to be the thing that fixed the clutter issues, we would already be solved. There wouldn't be any more clutter issues. So what I'm going to talk about with you on Austin's show is why that clutter shows up, what you can do about it, and how it's 1000% not your fault. In my experience, clutter is not proof of your defects, it's proof of your genius. Come join Austin and I and find out exactly what genius is hiding in your clutter.
How great is that?
Perfect.
It's going to be a great topic. So I know it'll probably get into some of the other themes of our lives, right? Because everything's connected. But again, Lisa, I want to thank you from the Playful Pivot. I want to thank you, Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller from the Red Carpet Connection, for making this show great. And feel free to share this. It will be up on the podcast tomorrow. I just say if someone hears this and it changes their trajectory, that's it. You could be the person listening live now, or you might be the person that's getting this on the playback. It's okay. Take what you can from this and start your playful pivot, take that first step, and let's move forward. So we're going to give you a collective goodbye, everybody. We'll put a big smile on. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.